Kevin Sharkey here. If you love my paintings as much as I do and you'd like to see my new collection, please go to kevinsharkeyart.com or Merrion Square every Sunday, weather permitting. And from the 1st of June, the Sharkey Gallery in New Street Mall, Malahide, will be open 7 days a week. For more information, see kevinsharkeyart.com. We accept Bitcoin.
Portfolio. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action.
You've worked hard and saved for retirement, but remember, it's what you do with that money that really matters. How will you ensure that you wring every nickel out of your Social Security benefits? Could you pay fewer taxes in retirement? And how and when will you withdraw money from your IRA or 401k? Welcome to Secured Retirement Radio with Joe Lucy of Secured Retirement Financial. Joe's a certified financial planner, fiduciary, and a contributor to the Wall Street Journal, and has nearly 25 years of helping people just like you. This is where you can count on straightforward and objective advice on how to make your money go further in retirement. And now, here's your host, Joe Lucy.
So, the threat of massive tax increases, a stock market at record highs, interest rates at record lows, changes with Social Security, required minimum distribution, so much more. These are just a few of the reasons why planning for retirement has been turned on its head over the last 12 months. If you're not making adjustments to your retirement game plan, there can be significant consequences for your retirement savings. Welcome to Secure Retirement Radio. I'm Joe Lucy, certified financial planner. I got Dylan Malberg joining me here this morning in our St. Louis Park studios. And if you're recently retired or hoping to retire in the next, let's say, 5 years, this is going to be a fantastic show for you today. Planning for retirement has never been easy, but the events over the last 12 months has made financial planning far more complicated than it used to be. If you're the kind of person who wants or needs to make every dollar count, you're going to need a lot more to achieve the same savings goals. Coming up on today's program, we're going to share with you 5 specific steps that you can take today. And if you want to retire successfully tomorrow, you'll want to pay attention, because we're going to be talking about an expiring strategy that can help you save a small fortune in taxes around IRAs and 401ks. Talk about little-known tricks that can help you yield even more income when you file for Social Security, plus how other retirees are getting around record low interest rates and successfully generating income today that you may not even be aware of.
Good morning, Joe.
Morning, Dylan. How are you?
Not too bad this morning. A little chilly, but I think we'll get through it. But anyway, the first critical step that you must take today to successfully retire tomorrow is making sure that you have a tax-efficient plan to withdraw out of these retirement accounts. And a lot of people don't realize it. You ask them, what's the biggest expense that you see in retirement? And, we hear the answers of maybe healthcare. Maybe it's the mortgage they just got on the place in Florida. But it very well could be taxes. And if you're not putting a plan around it, it's going to take a big chunk out of those retirement savings. Well,
and keep in mind, Dylan, that you probably have a good idea of what the account balances are in those retirement accounts. You can say, I've got X amount of money in this account, I got this, and when I add it all up, I got that. But we think of that all being part of the balance sheet, and the reality is that those retirement accounts, because they are different than our savings or even a Roth IRA, they're different because there's a tax, a tab attached to them. It's a tax, right? This money was put into these accounts. It's never been taxed. So when you take the money out, you'll be paying tax on it. That means that $500,000, million, $5 million, whatever your number is not really all belonging on that balance sheet. There is a tax involved in that, so you have to discount it to that. And all too often we see retirees getting ready for retirement, and they're thinking of, this is all theirs, but they're ignoring the biggest elephant in the room, and that's that as I take this money out, the IRS wants their share. And the bigger problem with this is that we don't know how much they're going to get their greedy hands on, because taxes are probably going higher. Let's face it, $3 trillion of stimulus already there, quantitative easing that's back in the news, and now we're talking another $2 trillion possibly of stimulus. Hey, guess what? All of this is going to create a hangover. We're all going to have to suffer through it here and figure out how we're going to pay this money back. And if you're a saver, if you're somebody getting ready for retirement, guess what? You got a target on your chest, and we got to start figuring out how we're going to address this.
Oh, and again, you talked about the stimulus and everything that's going on, and you look at where tax rates are at today, and you, again, not knowing about what the tax bill is going to be down the road, really starting to look at, does it make sense to start putting together a plan on how am I going to get my arms around this tax bill that I do owe the IRS on these retirement accounts? You know,
Dylan, we have families, and when they join us, one of the things that we will often make sure that they walk away with is a checklist. It's what I think is the ultimate checklist. And this is a checklist of all the things that you should be going down and going through and marking off as you're getting ready for retirement. I call it the secured retirement checklist, and it's a way for you to self-score yourself. If you want to go and get yourself a complimentary copy of this, just go to securedretirementchecklist.com and give us an email address. We'll make sure you have it here this morning. When families are getting ready for retirement, I think all too often we confuse or we assume that the investment strategies we're receiving right now are going to help isolate us from these future taxes. And that's really not the case. If you think about it, if I am looking for financial advice, there's really three kinds of service levels that we come across as we look at families and the planning that they've been doing. You know, the very basic, the bottom or the base of the pyramid on these service levels is, you know, just those groups that offer the essential services. Think of the do-it-yourself Schwab account or the E-Trade account. Maybe it's working directly with the mutual fund company, Vanguard, Fidelity. When you talk to the representatives there, they are not going to offer you tax or investment advice or tax advice. They're not going to say, I really think that this is the better account for you to purchase over this. They're just there to help facilitate that transaction. Does it make it? In fact, we need that level of that. And a lot of times when you go to that next level of service, the advisors you're working with are actually utilizing these services as well, right? They may have the account at TD Ameritrade or Fidelity to help facilitate the buys and sells. But in this next level of service, they start to give you investment advice. They'll say, you know, I think you're a little heavy on the game stock in your account. You should maybe trim some of that back. Or they'll say, here's a portfolio that's an aggressive portfolio or a moderate growth portfolio or a very conservative portfolio. So they'll start to give you that advice, but for the most part, you kind of have to fit in their lane. You have to be part of that model to be a good fit. Now, at the very top of that service levels, we talk about the three levels of service that you can get. That essential, which just really helps with the transaction. They do the buying and selling. You give them instructions. Or the next level where you start to get some investment strategy advice. The very top of that is what we call the secured retirement planning advice. It's where you start to get holistic planning. They're going to start looking at how to bring in tax planning, how to bring in investment and income planning. How does this all work together? They're going to probably have discussions around health care, long-term care, family planning, things like estate planning. All of this comes in that you don't get at those other levels. If that's a level of service that you are looking for yourself, I suggest you find somebody that can offer that kind of level of service. But again, I think a lot of times families think of the investment strategies that they're getting as the same as what we're going to be talking about here on today's program as we go through the 4 critical steps that you have to take today to make sure that you're retiring successfully. Looking at taxes is important because tax experts and economists are all heeding the same warnings. These massive taxes, they're on their way. They're right around the corner. And if you are nearing retirement, if you're getting ready, if it's on your radar, this could end up being the biggest potential problem that you have around your IRAs and 401ks. Most of us, we don't recognize it, but taxes are lower now than we've seen in over 40 years. And if you take advantage of the short opportunity we have before all the stimulus comes through and we start to have to pay through the nose, you can save yourself a small fortune when it comes to taxes. That's why I'm making a very special offer today. Just for you, the listener of today's program here at Secure Retirement Radio, you can learn how you can reduce or even eliminate taxes altogether in retirement with a free retirement tax analysis. We call it the Secured Retirement Tax Analysis. Here's how it works. We gather some information. We bring it back. We put it through the lab mathematically, statistically, historically. We're going to test it. And what we're going to do is we're going to put it all together to your own specific situation. We'll sit down with you. We'll share the strategies with you, and you can see exactly how much money you can save with a holistic plan. The tax savings end up being sometimes tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars. The customization, the analysis that we're talking about is free. There's no obligation, but it's only going to be available for today's listeners. I'm going to ask that you call us right now at 952-777-8838 to receive your free Secured Retirement Tax Analysis. That's 952-777-8838. I believe there's a very short opportunity here for those that want to put together some defensive strategies, so you can't wait. 952-777-8838.
How are retirees successfully generating income with interest rates next to 0%? We'll share the answer when we come back.
He's Del Malberg. I'm Joe Lucy. Don't go anywhere. More with Secure Retirement Radio in just a few moments.
He's a certified financial planner, fiduciary, and a contributor to the Wall Street Journal. And he's no ordinary Joe. You're listening to Joe Lucy on Secured Retirement Radio.
It's a chilly Saturday outside, but it's nice and warm here at Cigar Jones. Todd Ramsberg and Mike Meldal, the cigar guys, hanging out on a chilly Saturday morning here at the Jones.
I know, this place is great. It is toasty, especially in those humidors. I mean, we have two huge walk-in humidors. You ever just walk in there and just stand in there?
Yes, it feels like you're in...
Threat of massive tax increases, a stock market hitting record highs, we got interest rates at record lows, proposed changes around healthcare, Social Security, required distributions, and so much more. Retiring today, there's no doubt it is different than it was just a short time ago. Go back a year ago. If you're not starting to consider some adjustments to your planning, if you're not making these proactive changes today, there could be some real significant consequences for your retirement. Welcome back to Secure Retirement Radio. I'm Joe Lucy, certified financial planner. I got Dylan Malberg joining me in our St. Louis Park studio, and we're talking today about why planning for retirement has turned itself on the head over the last 12 months. Plus, we're going to talk about 4 critical steps you have to take today to make sure that you can retire successfully tomorrow. So coming up in this segment, why generating income is one of the critical pillars to a retirement planning success strategy, and why we'll share with you what other retirees have been doing that are helping them successfully generate income when we're in such a low interest rate environment.
And the first critical step that we talked about this morning on Secure Retirement Radio is making sure that you're creating a strategy to reduce your taxes in retirement. And the second critical step is making sure that you have a bulletproof income plan. And you think about retirement, and it's not necessarily built on what the balance sheet says. We talked about the balance sheet a little bit in the last segment. It's not about the numbers that are on there, but it's the ability to take what you've saved up and generate income in retirement, because without income, there's no retirement.
I hear it over and over. Families hire us here at Secure Retirement Radio to help them with their financial planning. Number one, their goal is to make sure that they can generate the income to maintain their lifestyle. I've never once met any of you out there that want to sacrifice, cut back on what you've been spending. You want to be able to maintain that lifestyle, spending in confidence, knowing that the money that you spend in your 60s and 70s, you're not going to wish you had back in your 80s. Number two, you're looking for tax-efficient income. You want to know that you are doing everything you can, morally, ethically, and legally, to reduce your tax burden. The third thing you ask from us here at Secure Retirement Radio is to grow your wealth. But it's never at the compromise of those first two. We want to make sure we get the income, reduce your taxes, and then if we can, let's grow the wealth. Income is the most critical component of having a secure retirement. For decades, the common wisdom has been that we live off interest and dividends from the portfolio, and you leave the principal intact. Now, this is somewhat old-fashioned way of thinking things, and reminds me of that Monopoly card that says the bank pays you a dividend of $50, and this notion of clipping coupons from your bearer bonds. Those days are gone. See, the challenge for today, if you're in the red zone, if you're getting ready for retirement, you're between the age of 59 and 70, and you are getting serious about your retirement, is knowing how to generate a steady income, a predictable, a reliable income from various investments. Withdrawing from the wrong accounts can put you in the wrong area. Taking it out tax inefficiently, not taking it out tax smart, can also help make you spend this money far too soon. A lot of what we talk about comes back to this notion of mailbox income and optimizing that.
Yeah, and you talk about mailbox income. This is the income that's going to be hitting the checkbook or the checking account each and every month, regardless of the ups and downs on Wall Street. And we talk about mailbox income. We talk about the Social Security, the pensions. Maybe there's a part-time job, maybe some rental income. You can kind of decide what you really see as mailbox income. But we talk about mailbox income. We focus primarily around Social Security and those pensions and making sure we're optimizing that with the rest of your plan.
Well, and also keep in mind that there's a whole lot of advice out there about, there's folks out there that are really glorified insurance salesmen. They may not even be licensed to offer wealth accumulating strategies, investments, and they're out there telling you that you need an annuity to make up for all this. Well, whether an annuity is right or wrong for you is really got to be something that is only decided after looking at your personal situation. But having this mailbox income, money that comes in each and every month, regardless of what's going on Wall Street, is something that everybody needs. You get a retiree, and we see this from time to time. Somebody that's retiring maybe from the federal government. They've got a really nice pension. Add that to the Social Security, their health insurance. A lot of these things are going to be covered. And they may have even a smaller balance in their retirement accounts than many of you, but yet they know that this money is going to be there like clockwork each and every month. When we had spring here and everything was locking up with COVID and 37% withdrawals out of your balances on your IRAs, withdrawals drops in a very short period of time, they were the ones that were still sleeping well at night. Why? Because they knew where their money was coming from and they knew that they could allow this money to recover. You compare that to the executive that's retiring with several $1 million in an IRA, but taking out a percentage of those withdrawals, that now when the markets come down, they're locking in losses. They're taking money out that can never recover. There's a difference there. And it really kind of comes down to what are you looking for. But most of the families that work with us here and the teams that we work with at Secure Retirement are looking for that peace of mind, knowing that they got this mailbox income addressed and they have a plan in place that's documented. It's been tested mathematically, statistically, historically, and they've got this covered, and they're protecting themselves from what we call market value adjustments.
Well, and you talk about market value adjustments, and you talk about an income plan. Again, we want to make sure we're optimizing that mailbox income, the Social Security, the pensions. The second thing is let's make sure that we do have the correct mix of stocks, bonds, these whatever the right financial products are for you. And you kind of think about Goldilocks, right? It's got to be just right for you.
Can't be too hot.
Exactly.
It can't be too cold.
So, and then after those two, you got to look at what are going to be the tax consequences of withdrawing out of the accounts. What are the tax consequences of the mailbox income, and how is everything going to fit together to make sure that your money is going to last as long as you do?
I visited with a couple just the other day, and they've done a fantastic job. I mean, they even shared this with me that when they started setting aside money in those 401ks, they never thought that they'd get to the balances they are. They were able to pay for their, they had 5 children, all of their children. They helped pay, and all their 5 children have graduated without any college debt. But what's happened along the way is they've put all their money into one pot. This is that money that's never been taxed. It's the IRA, the 401k, the 403b. It's in those tax-deferred accounts. Keep in mind, when we put this money in there, we were told the biggest lie. We were told that we would take the money out of the lower bracket. Well, for the couple we were visiting with, that's not going to be the case. And that's the same that we see over and over again. Tens of thousands of Americans are retiring each and every day right now, only to find out that they were lied to. They were told they could put their money into this account, and that's what they did. They've accumulated these healthy sums of money in these retirement accounts that have never been taxed, and they're finding out that when they start to take this money out, that they're going to be paying higher tax rates. And the problem is with all the stimulus, we talked about this in the first segment a little bit, Dylan, we know taxes are going higher. And that's going to start occurring right as this couple is hitting 72 and they're forced to take money out. They're going to be forced to take money out. It's going to be adding on to an income stream that they're pretty comfortable with right now. It can create a situation where they're paying higher Medicare premiums. God forbid one of them passes on and all of a sudden one of them finds out about the widow's penalty, and eventually down the road it all goes to the kiddos and the kiddos get to pay the penalty. So we need to make sure that we're looking at steady streams of income that are tax efficient to make sure that we have that secure retirement we're looking for.
No, exactly. And again, not just looking at the one product, one way to do that. There's a lot of different ways to put together a income plan and a retirement plan. And again, there's a lot of different combinations. Really have to look at what kind of level of planning do you want to be at and what's going to be right for you and your family for your retirement.
Because not all levels of planning are the same. Having a investment strategy is different than what we're talking about here today as we talk about 4 critical steps that you can take today to make sure you have a secure retirement. You need to have an income plan, whether it's mathematically, statistically, historically tested, to make sure that you can retire in confidence. It's what we call our tax smart retirement plan here at Secure Retirement Radio. Successful retirements are not built on the savings balance that you have in the accounts. It's not built on a net worth statement or the assets you have. They're built on your ability to generate income out of these assets. That's why we're going to make a special offer here this morning just for today's listeners. I want to make sure that you can discover exactly how you can turn on your savings and investments and take them and turn them into an income workhorse with what we call the Secured Retirement Income Analysis. The complimentary analysis, it's absolutely free. It's going to reveal for you the fastest and safest ways that you can increase income that most people are overlooking. We're going to share with you ways that you can protect the principal in all the increasing risks that we're seeing with record highs in Wall Street. We're going to show you how you can get even more income when you're filing your Social Security and how to make sure you're optimizing this benefit. Remember, the analysis is free. There's no obligation, but you're going to have to call us right now at 952-777-8838. I've got team members that are answering the phone this morning to make sure that we can schedule for you a free customized analysis, but you'll have to call at 952-777-8838. If you're that kind of person that wants to make sure your money is working for you, that you can turn your savings into an income workhorse, you can't afford to miss on the opportunity. 952-777-8838 to get your secure retirement income analysis.
96% of Americans lose an average of $111,000 in Social Security income, and it's because they file for their benefits at the wrong time, and we'll tell you the key to preventing this from happening to you.
That's Dylan Malberg. I'm Joe Lucy. More with Secure Retirement Radio in a few moments.
Southern Nights.
He's a certified financial planner, fiduciary, and a contributor to the Wall Street Journal. And he's no ordinary Joe. You're listening to Joe Lucy on Secured Retirement Radio.
To mention the trees.
Find us on your radio at AM 1130 and FM 103.5. Stream us on iHeartRadio. And now find us on, hey Alexa, play Twin Cities News Talk on iHeartRadio.
Getting Twin Cities News Talk station from iHeartRadio.
Thanks, Alexa.
From the Cremation Society of Minnesota Weather.
Taxes, generating income, risk, market adjustments, healthcare, Social Security. Planning for retirement has been turned on its head over the last 12 to 13 months. And if you're unprepared or haven't made any adjustments yet, well, there can be significant financial consequences hitting your way. Welcome back to Secure Retirement Radio. I'm Joe Lucy, certified financial planner. Got Dylan Malberg in our St. Louis Park studio. We're talking this morning about why planning for retirement has changed so much over the last 12 months. Plus 4 critical steps that you can take today to make sure that you can retire successfully tomorrow. Coming up in this segment, how to avoid maybe one of the most common mistakes we're seeing with claiming your Social Security benefits that can end up costing you thousands and thousands of dollars of lost income in your retirement.
And again, 4 critical steps that you must take today if you want to retire successfully tomorrow. We talked about making sure that you have a strategy to reduce your taxes in retirement. We spent last segment talking about making sure you have a bulletproof income plan and potentially using multiple sources of income. And the third critical step that you must take today is making sure that you have a plan so you don't leave tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars of Social Security benefits on the table.
Here's the thing, Dylan. Prior to 2016, there was a lot of advisors, financial professionals out there that were studying Social Security, trying to get investment advice. And at the time, there were a lot of these strategies where you could have a married couple, the husband and the wife, that could kind of coordinate their strategies together and get a whole lot more. They had what was called the restricted application, allowed you to take a benefit off of your spouse and defer yours a little bit longer, getting the growth there. There was a restricted application that allowed you to collect off of a spouse, and then there were these things that we could do that come Halloween of 2015, everything got turned on its head. Immediately, they said no more restricted applications, and then January 1st of that year, they put a timeline on how much longer we could take these restricted applications. And now that we're in 2021, for the most part, those are gone. Well, what we hear then is that Social Security, we're really only left with two options. I either, as a married couple, will wait until 70, getting as much out of them, or I take them as soon as I can. I take them at 62 or the day after I retire. Both of those strategies, whether you're taking it at waiting as long as possible or taking it as soon as you can, I can show you why statistically you're probably leaving a ton of money on the table. You see, for most couples, the way to take their Social Security benefits is a combination of trying to optimize the benefits. It's not just about which is the biggest number, but which is the most optimal way for you and your family to do this. And the only way to really find out is to be working with an advisor that's looking at the whole picture, not just the investment strategies. They need to start looking at, how are we going to cover health insurance? What are your goals around your family planning? Do you want to leave a large legacy? Is that not as important to you? Taxes. Let's start to look at taxes, because Social Security by itself is a tax-free income stream. None of you should ever have to pay tax on your Social Security income, but it's the other sources of income, pensions, required distributions, that all of a sudden we start getting hit with these extra taxes that not only causes taxes on the withdrawals from my IRA, but I'm going to start getting socked in the nose every time I take money out, because I'm going to be paying a tax on Social Security income that I shouldn't have to be taxed on.
No, and if you think about Social Security, and Social Security income is, the Stanford Center for Longevity calls it a near perfect source of retirement income. And the number one reason they give is because you don't have to worry about it running out during your lifetime. And you talked about income. Exactly. You talked about the tax efficiency of it. And you also mentioned, there's no more restricted application. There's no more file and suspend. These are gone. And we hear it a lot that, with less options, there's just not a lot to plan around with Social Security. And we talk about it all the time, Joe, is because there's less option, it's arguably harder to start planning and making sure you take Social Security, right? Because you do have less options.
Well, and Dylan, I think that it's because of the presence we have on media that we probably see far more families retiring than many of the advisors out there. And maybe so what we see is a little bit, we see it a little bit more regularly than some of the other advisors that are working only on referrals or something like that may not see as many families. But we see it every day. Now, whether you're married or single or widowed, families are coming in our office, and we will recognize that they are missing out on opportunities for them to be taking Social Security today that don't impact the optimization of those strategies. I've seen widows that should be taking benefits now, or widows that started taking benefits, but they ended up doing it the wrong way. There are single folks out there. It's not just about waiting until 70 anymore when you're single and don't have other benefits to coordinate with. Everything has to be tailored to your own specific situation. And maybe that's the biggest thing I see. You read an article and somebody says, here's this great strategy that you can do. And Dylan was just talking about this. There are strategies that no longer, you find an article that was written out on Google from several years ago. They might be talking about these strategies, but they don't work anymore. The only way to find out what strategies are appropriate for you is to work with a specialist that really understands Social Security. They are scholars of Social Security, and they will look at your own specific situation to tailor a customized, optimized strategy for you and your family so that you can coordinate that Social Security with any other income streams you have, or the savings in your accounts to get the most out of it so that you can spend in confidence throughout your retirement, always knowing that the money you're spending early is not money you're going to wish you had later on.
Well, and you talk about Social Security planning, and we hear it all the time too. They called the Social Security office, and they really didn't get anywhere with it. And you think about one, they aren't legally able to give you advice, and you think about whoever you're working with now. If you are working with somebody, you got to think about what kind of planning are we putting together. If does the subject get changed? You're talking about the XYV mutual fund or whatever account that he wants to go to, and you kind of avoid the whole subject altogether. Really looking at what's the right kind of plan and what kind of level do you want to be working with as far as putting together your retirement plan.
Well, also understand that when you work with somebody from the Social Security Administration, they get to benefit from having a government pension as well, right? I mean, not all of us have pensions anymore. In fact, only 20% of us have any kind of pension that's going to be a significant contributor to our retirement accounts. But the gentleman or lady at the Social Security Administration, they're going to have those. In fact, the older employees there don't even collect Social Security. Most of them are probably retired through now, but I'm sure that there's still a few there. If they're giving you advice, they may not be looking at this through the same lens that we do here at Secured Retirement, because the decisions on how to take Social Security are changing. They're changing all the time. And the way to take it in 2021 or in 2018 have changed as well. And you need to make sure you're working with somebody that understands how to do that. You see, Social Security planning, retirement in general has never been easy. But the events that have occurred over the last 12 months with COVID, the lockdowns, the restaurant closures, and everything else has made retirement planning, getting ready for retirement, far more complicated than it ever has been in the past. And if you don't start to make some of these minor adjustments or sometimes more serious adjustments in the course that you're on, you can find yourselves down the wrong way. The game plan has changed. And there are significant financial consequences for those of you that are not doing anything around these. If you are looking for some advice on how to retire and you want to work with somebody that's got a tax smart strategy, somebody that can look at the entire situation you are under and put together a customized, tailorized plan for you, then get today the Secured Retirement Tax Analysis. The tax analysis is complimentary. All you do is you give us some information. We'll bring it back to our lab. We'll run it through the system, and then we will schedule a time to review this with you so you can see exactly what the benefits of having a tax smart plan are for you. It's only available for today's listeners at no cost, so give us a call right now at 952-777-8838. That's 952-777-8838. Get your tax smart retirement plan, the Secured Retirement Tax Smart Retirement Plan, at 952-777-8838.
Most people are taking more investment risk than they know or than they need to at this stage of the game. Could you be in that same boat? We'll talk about it when we come back.
That's Dylan Malberg. I'm Joe Lucy, certified financial planner. More with Secure Retirement Radio in just a few moments.
He's a certified financial planner, fiduciary, and a contributor to the Wall Street Journal. And he's no ordinary Joe. You're listening to Joe Lucy on Secured Retirement Radio.
Glenn Beck, weekdays from 9 to 11 on Twin Cities News Talk AM 1130 and 103.5 FM.
And if you think that these words mean nothing, you're wrong.
And on iHeartRadio with your smart speaker.
Do you want to retire in the next 5 years? Who wouldn't, right? But how will you...
entering retirement has never been easy. Now, it's a little bit more complicated now than it was just a couple years ago. And let's face it, going back 20, 30 years, it was a little bit more simple when we all had pensions, but it's never been easy. But these events that have occurred, what I'm talking about. I'm talking about COVID. I'm talking about the shutdowns. I'm talking about the restaurants closing. I'm talking about schools, everything going on, us all working from home. Retirement planning is far more complicated today than it ever has been. We got drastically low interest rates. I've got the market hitting all-time highs. And if you're not making adjustments right now, if you haven't recognized that things have changed, that the ball has moved, the goal has changed, well, I think you could be in for some significant financial consequences to your nest egg down the road. Welcome back to Secured Retirement Radio. I'm Joe Lucy, certified financial planner. I got Dylan Malberg with me in our St. Louis Park studio, and we're talking this morning about planning for retirement and how this has turned on its head. And we're talking about 4 critical things that you need to be doing right now with your retirement planning to make sure that you are still on track. Coming up in our final segment here, are you taking more investment risk than you should be at this stage of the game? Plus, why updating or rebalancing your investments is one of the most underrated pillars of retirement planning that is often being overlooked.
And before we get to the 4th critical step this morning that you must take today if you want to retire successfully tomorrow, just quick recap on the first 3 that we talked about. The first thing that we talked about this morning on Secure Retirement Radio is making sure that you have a strategy to reduce your taxes in retirement. The second critical step is making sure that you have a bulletproof income plan that should include multiple sources of income. On that same note, looking at making sure that you don't file for Social Security until you've looked at the impact of not only the timing of it, but how is it going to impact your tax return? How is it going to impact potential Medicare premiums? And the 4th critical step that you must take right now, you talked a little bit about the ever-changing world that we're in. Let's make sure that you're understanding your risk tolerance and making sure that you are rebalancing those investments regularly.
You know, Dylan, when it comes to the portfolio, when somebody visits with us for that complimentary review, the very first second analysis that we a look at your portfolio, second opinion, one thing that we will always do is take that existing portfolio you have, and we're going to do a stress test on it. It's like, look, 53 years old. I go down to the doctor's office. I go down to one of these imaging places. They put me on the treadmill. They got me running on this thing, and every minute and a half, they're kicking it up. And all of a sudden, within about 4 or 5 minutes, they congratulate me because I made it farther than other people, and I'm out of breath. And then they tell me to lay on this gurney, and they start taking pictures of my heart. That right there is a cardiac stress test, right? And they're doing it because they want to look for clogs or clots or whatever that could be life-threatening. Well, with something as important as your health, we want to make sure we're doing that from time to time, especially if we got family history like the Lucys. But when it comes to your portfolio, you need to be doing the same thing. How is your portfolio doing? Let's put it on the treadmill. Let's see what it looks like, because there are 3 risks that everybody has to have on their radar when it comes to planning for retirement. And the risks right now are more certain than they were even just 12 months ago. We got markets at record highs. We got interest rates at record lows. Look at that risk for capacity. How much could your portfolio drop and you get to still retirement with the lifestyle that you wanted? That's a mathematical number, but there's also a risk needed, right? I can't just have everything in the savings account earning 0% right now. I mean, heck, we look awfully hard and we might be able to find a 1% on our money without taking risk, right? And then the third one is this risk tolerance. Now, that's where we oftentimes focus. That's where the big money managers out there like to focus, because if you lose money, but you said you were an aggressive investor, well, it's a little bit of a CY, cover their assets type game. And so they want to focus on risk tolerance, but the problem is my risk tolerance and your risk tolerance and your neighbor's risk tolerance, everybody's risk tolerance changes when we have something like a COVID shutdown. Remember last spring when all of a sudden you started getting really nervous about the portfolio balance, even though you had told everybody that you were an aggressive investor? Risk tolerance changes. You got to look at risk capacity, risk tolerance, and risk required all in one thing when you're looking at a portfolio. And that's why we need to do a stress test. We need to see where we're at. Here's a quick way that you can look at your own portfolio and give your own little self-analysis on whether or not you should be seeing somebody about the portfolio risk you have. I'm going to ask you, if you would identify yourself as a conservative or moderate, even an aggressive investor, I'd like you to go back to a statement you had last summer and look at the portfolio and how much you have in fixed income bonds. And I want you to look at the portfolio today, and I want you to look at how much you have in fixed income and bonds and tell me if those numbers have changed. And if you recognize that the situation has changed because we had to drop interest rates so low, and now there's really probably only one direction we can go, and recognizing that those bonds, the fixed incomes, are going to not act the same as they're going to go, they're inverse to interest rates. and you haven't done anything about that, then maybe it's time to have a heart-to-heart with the person that's helping you manage your portfolio. And if that's you, maybe you should look for some other advice to somebody that can bring that to you. We talked in the first segment about the levels of service you get as you're looking for financial advice. The very basic levels, you're working and doing this on your own. There's nothing wrong with that. Many families are very capable of doing that. They're working directly with Schwab, Fidelity, Vanguard, and they're buying their own and selling their own investments. But understand, if you're working in that level of service, you're getting zero advice from the other institution. They make money on your money, but not for the advice they give you. The next level up is where you start to get some advice. You have a financial professional that's helping you with the strategies. They're telling you to buy and sell different investments. Maybe you've got too much weighted in bonds, like I was just talking about, and they're going to tell you to lighten that up, like many of you should be doing right now with the interest rates at all-time lows. But sometimes they kind of taken their eye off the ball, and they haven't given you any new advice, and things have changed. I mean, let's face it, that things have changed since last January, but if your portfolio is set up the same way, then well, maybe you should have that heart-to-heart. Only at that third level. That third level where somebody's going to, well, we call it our tax smart plan, but it's where you start to get a secured retirement plan that looks beyond just the investment strategies. They're going to start, investment strategies are important. Don't take this wrong. They're going to look at the amount of risk that you should and could and want to take in your portfolio, but then they're also going to look at how they can take that portfolio back and make it tax efficient. If they aren't bringing in tax planning, then they're operating at that second level. There's nothing wrong with that, but if you're at a point that you're getting ready for retirement, maybe it's time that you find value in that higher level. How about an income plan? Has it been statistically, mathematically, historically tested? Has anybody gone through that to show you exactly what your level of retirement success can be and made sure that all these investments in the tax planning is consistent with these areas? Have you had those discussions around long-term care? How are you going to bridge to health insurance if you're going to retire before 65?